My name is Chris Steely, and today's date is August 15, 2019. The simulated facilitated topic is the Reduced Poverty Incorporated Grant Initiative. We call it the RPI Grant Initiative. The role play envelopes are numbered 1 through 5. So the recorded session in which you are participating is an official segment of my application for Certified Master Facilitator. The recording is being done in place of me going to a central location to demonstrate facilitation skills in front of an assessment committee. The recorded session eliminates unnecessary time and expense of traveling to an assessment site. However, recording also allows for the integrity of the process to be easily compromised. So accordingly, it's essential that you help create an environment that maintains the same level of integrity and accountability that would be the case if I were in front of an assessment committee. So please note the following. Number 1, it is essential that the recording be done in one continuous run without stopping. Number 2, it is essential that when each of you opens the role play envelopes for the first time, the opening is recorded with the front and back of the envelope clearly showing before opening. So be prepared to do that. Number 3, it's essential that you follow the instructions that appear on your role play sheet. Number 4, it is essential that I not see the contents of any envelope until the session is completed. Number 5, it is essential that the debrief sheet appear on the video. And finally, for emphasis, it is essential that once the video equipment is turned on with the reading of this statement, it is left running until the debrief session is completed at the end. A recording that appears to have been restarted in any way will be cause for my disqualification. So the video recorder will now focus the camera and do a close-up on the participant closest to the video recorder, which will be Tony. And the first participant will now hold up the participant envelope and show the camera the number on the front of the envelope and show the back of the envelope to verify that the envelope has not been opened. So the first participant can now open the envelope and silently read the instructions while the camera moves on to focus on the next participant. So let's come over to Scott here. So Scott's going to hold up the participant envelope, show the camera the number on the front of the envelope, and show the back of the envelope and verify that the envelope has not been opened. And then you're now going to open the envelope and silently read the instructions while the camera moves on to focus on the next participant. So now, Brad, hold up the participant envelope, show the camera the number on the front of the envelope, and show the back of the envelope to verify that the envelope has not been opened. So he's now going to open the envelope and silently read the instructions while the camera moves on to focus on Rick. So he's now going to hold up the participant envelope, show the camera the number in the front of the envelope, and show the back of the envelope to verify that the envelope has not been opened. And you're going to now open the envelope, Rick, and silently read the instructions while the camera moves on to focus on the next participant, which is Mike. And you're going to hold up the participant envelope, show the camera the number on the front of the envelope, and show the back of the envelope to verify that the envelope has not been opened, right? And then you're going to open the envelope and silently read the instructions while the camera moves on to focus on the next participant. Okay, so go ahead and read your statement. When you're done reading, just look up and let me know that you're done.
Okay, can we get this thing started now, or what?
Yeah, Brad, we're gonna get started. We're gonna let Mike go ahead and finish reading his statement.
Great.
Okay. So Rick, are you done then? Rick?
I'm good.
Okay, good. So Mike, as soon as you're done, just look at me and we'll know that you're ready. All right, we are now ready to begin the simulated facilitated session. I will be facilitating for 25 to 35 minutes. In this time, I will cover the opening, the close, and at least 2 other agenda items. I will not necessarily complete all agenda items. In addition, to save time, I may end an agenda item early by saying words similar to, now that we have exhausted the responses for this agenda item, let's move on to the next agenda item. You might hear me say that. So at the end of the role play, I will be asking you for feedback on things I did well as things that I could have done to make the session better. Your frank feedback will be helpful in the assessment process. Please feel free during the session to jot down feedback notes that you may want to remember. This ends the statement of integrity. Video recorder, please keep the camera running as I transition to the start of the simulated facilitated session. So, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. The purpose of our time together is to determine what process we're going to use to get grant money for Reduced Profit Incorporated. So we are RPI, that's what we call ourselves. So that's the purpose, is to gain consensus on that ideal. What's exciting about this is that you're here, you're the leaders of the business. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating the future of our business as we talk about optimizing how we're going to raise funds and how we're going to get grant money, okay? So you're each here because you have a critical role to play in the business, and you're important to be here to be able to do that. So we have some ground rules, because since each of you has your own specific issues that you think are important, we're here to seek commonality. So in order to be able to agree upon a theme as a board of directors, we need to agree upon some ground rules. So over here, we've actually compiled some ground rules that are on the board here. So the first one is presence. So be here today, right? We're all busy people, we've all got things going on. Be here today. Be fully present while you're in this room with us today. Number 2 is respect the speaker. Whoever's speaking, whether I'm speaking or you're speaking, please respect the speaker, and honor them as somebody who's speaking. Number 3, titles left outside the room. We've got different titles, everybody's here with a different role, but just leave the titles outside the room. We're all empowered at the same level here today, okay? 100% participation. We're looking for everybody to be involved and to be engaged. So 100% participation through the process. Number 5 is commit only to strengths or make suggestions to improve. Okay, so focus on the strengths, and if for some reason there's a potential weakness, make a suggestion to improve that strength or that weakness. Number 6, start on time, end on time. Got to be punctual. Punctuality is respect. Number 7, avoid sideboard discussions. Maybe you might feel compelled to have a discussion on the side. Just don't do that. So avoid sideboard discussion. Number 8, mobile phones off. Just turn them off. Okay, so while you're here in this room, just we call it netiquette. Keep the phones off. And number 9, we're going to have fun, right? We want to have fun. We're going to make it fun. So those are my 9 ground rules. Anybody want to add a ground rule for a chance to this?
Looks good.
Okay, looks good. So do I have consensus? Does everybody agree on these ground rules? Please raise your hand, showing that you agree on the ground rules. Okay, good. All right, good. Okay, great. So we have the ground rules in place. Now we also have some parking boards over here. So if you notice the parking boards, as we encounter situations, we may have some issues that we encounter as we engage. And there's some sticky notes here, and there's a pen if maybe we have an issue, and I'll facilitate that as the issues might come up. And we might make some decisions around what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So we might put the decisions up on the parking boards, and there might be some actions that are assigned as well. So that's our parking board. So we're going to use that to be able to kind of keep the facilitated session clean. Okay, so any questions at this point? Pretty straightforward? Okay, great. So now think about the process that we use to request grant monies right now, okay? Think about that process. Think about how it's going well. Think about the good aspects of the process. And now think about some of the things that could be done better. So what do you think are the best projects that we should focus on in order to receive grant money here at RPI? I want you to take 30 seconds and just write down your idea of what you think the best project would be. Okay, 30 seconds, go ahead and go. Okay, when you're done, just look up at me. good? Okay, very good. Hey Rick, I noticed that you're on your phone. Is everything okay?
I just got to respond to this message real quick if you don't mind.
Okay, so is there any way that
It's
might be able to
super
work?
urgent. I have a fire I need to put out real quick.
Okay, great.
Is that cool?
Okay, so
I'd
folks,
like 1 second.
if it's that urgent, I get it and everything. So let's just take a quick break. Okay, everybody, we're just gonna take a quick minute break. Okay, enjoy your break. So we're breaking right now. We're in the middle of a break.
Okay.
He's gonna take care of that. So, okay, good. Glad you can take care of it because I know how important business is. Sometimes, and again, we do have some ground rules on that. So please do me a favor and just go ahead and turn that phone off if you would. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, great. Good stuff. All right, so now that you've written down your ideas, I'm going to list them on the flip chart. Okay, so let's start with Brad. So, what'd you come up with as an alternative?
There's the grantwatch.com platform.
So, GrantWatch. Tell me more about GrantWatch. What's GrantWatch about?
Yeah, it's an aggregated website of different portals to raise funds. So it's a leveraged way to get access to places to submit grant applications.
So it sounds like it's a portal that we can use to be able to apply for grants.
Exactly.
So that's great. So is it okay I just write grantwatch.com down there? Is that okay? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, good.
You need to learn how to spell though, because you're not.
Grant.
You can't spell too well.
Thanks, I
Wow,
get it. I
he's
appreciate
really
that.
working fast right now, so I'm sure that he's trying to get everything all together.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Great, appreciate
think
that.
so.
I don't know. I think it is how to spell, but that's okay.
That's okay. Okay, grantwatch.com. Is there any other way I should have spelled this, Brad? Or
That's okay.
it's okay. Good. Thank you. Okay, over to Rick. What'd you come up with?
Yeah. I don't know, like contract with grants, consultant. I don't know.
So contract with a grants consultant. Is that what I'm hearing? What does that mean to you?
Yeah,
What does that
let's
look
do
like
that.
to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Like my mind's kind of somewhere else right now. Can we skip me and go to him real quick?
Okay. good.
Give me a second.
That's fine. And we'll come back to you, Rick. Appreciate that. So Mike, what'd you come up with?
I think it's important to work closer with our existing donors,
So
motivating them to give more and to help network with and find new donors.
okay, great. We're closer with existing donors. So can I
Mike,
say
that's a great idea.
Can I say
That's a
network
great
with
idea.
existing
Good.
donors? Mike, is that okay? Network with existing donors?
Yes, and then I would also / find new donors.
Okay. And / find new donors. Okay, good. All right. Great idea. Does it make sense? Anything else you want to expound upon in that context? Okay, I think we all get that. Good. Okay, over to Tony. What'd you come up with, Tony?
Hey Chris, what I would do, or I recommend, is hire a full-time grant writer. And what they can do is they'll do all the research and then run the campaigns to help with the capital raising.
Okay, good. Makes sense. So hire a grant writer. Is that a good way to write it here on this list?
Well, it's great to have an expert, who's done this before, can be more efficient and run the process for us.
Okay, great. Makes sense. Good. So hire the grant writer. Okay, so we're developing some ideas. Good. Thank you very much.
I have to say something. I think that's the most ridiculous thing, Tony, that I've ever heard you say, and that's saying something. Because normally you're disruptive in our meetings, and you've really not been useful. We already have a grant writer. I don't know why in the heck you're saying that.
I just think, Mike, thanks for a comment. I'm sure you really thought about that when
I
you
did.
said it.
Absolutely.
It's just that I think when you look at this from a grand scale, it just seems to me that's the idea that keeps popping out. And I've seen other successful programs raise money that way.
Great. And Mike, I really appreciate your commenting on that. I mean, it's just, if you have an idea that maybe Tony's got a crazy idea, but for the purpose of this session, let's go ahead and entertain all ideas that are out there, okay?
Yeah, well, I thought it was a stupid idea.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I really think mine was best. So
Okay, great. And what we're going to do is we're going to gain consensus, but for now, let's go ahead and take it all in as a team and bring it all together, and then we'll be able to collaborate and gain consensus on what we're going to do. Is that okay for now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but we have a limited time, and what this person's saying here is wasting what little time we have. He's always running, his mouth off, and always has this type of inappropriate foolish behavior.
Okay, great. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So as we look at the ground rules, Mike, just to kind of respecting the speaker and respecting that Tony has some ideas while we're in this room today. And then maybe afterwards, we can actually talk about this outside and determine how, maybe we can see eye to eye better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For the purpose of the session today, let's just kind of keep it within the.
All right, well then I apologize then, Tony, for being rude.
Oh, no, it's fine. I know
well-
you're just expressing your opinion and being transparent.
We're-
I think
we're
they're all
under-
great ideas.
Okay, good.
We're under a lot of pressure to get this work outside done, and I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so
I apologize.
Thank
No
again, I
worries.
appreciate your involvement. Again, we gotta be candid about this. Okay?
Hey,
So
can I
good
throw
stuff.
an idea real quick?
Yeah, go
How
ahead.
much longer is it gonna be, by the way? Cause I got a lot of stuff to take care of.
Yeah, I know, and I know we scheduled a certain amount of time for this, and we're not
Okay.
gonna exceed that time limit, right? So again, I'm gonna respect your time. Back to the ground rules, Rick, we actually start on time and we're gonna end on time.
Alright, cool. Can we do like a grants consultant and bring that in?
So, matter of fact, that was the idea. I'm gonna go back to you real quick. So the grants consultant was your idea. So tell me more, what does that grants consultant idea look like?
I don't know, I just think it's easy to bring in somebody who can do it, who's already done it, I don't know.
Okay, great. So bringing in a grants consultant, is that okay that I wrote that there, the grants consultant, that we understand what that means?
Sure.
Okay, great. So networking here, making this look good. And then we talked about hiring a grant writer, that was Tony's idea. Scott, what'd you come up with?
I think we should use a crowdfunding platform like GoFundMe or Kickstarter.
So crowdfunding is the idea. Is it okay, I just write crowdfunding on the sheet here? So crowdfunding. Crowdfunding.
Ken, I think next time we need a scribe that, knows English and grammar.
I know, I appreciate it, yeah. When it comes to writing, I do it some of the time. But everybody can read this, right? Everybody can read what I'm writing here? Does it make sense? Read what I'm writing? Okay, that's good. I appreciate your feedback.
That's
though.
good.
Okay, great. So here's the list we've come up with as alternatives for fundraising projects for RPI. Number 1 is the Grant Watch program. Number 2 is a grant consultant. Number 3 is networking with existing donors and finding new donors as well. Number 4 would be hiring a consultant, a grant consultant. Or, I'm sorry, a grant writer, I should say, a grant writer. And the 5th one is crowdfunding. So as we're looking at these, I want to do a quick consensus check on this. So as we're looking at these and you had some ideas and everything, so do we actually have a consensus on which one of these would be best? Does anybody want to say that
Well,
they
of course,
completely agree?
grantwatch.com, I mean, that's, yeah.
Anybody that didn't actually say something, is there something that you want to lobby for with one specific option that you didn't actually bring up?
I think they're all great ideas when you look at it. I think we can use a combination of all of them. I mean, they're all, I think, fantastic on the board.
I don't agree with that. I think mine's the most important one there, and we need to really focus on that.
Okay, great. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciate your input. So what we want to do now is we're going to gain consensus because the ideal is that we're actually going to agree upon a project that works for all of us. So remember, the definition of consensus is I can live with it and support it. Okay? So when you have consensus, that you can live with it and support it. So what we're going to do is, it seems that we agree that we all need a new grant writing process. Is that correct? We all agree that? Okay, great. So where we seem to disagree is what the right project is. Is that correct? So let's run through the project alternatives listed, ranking the specific variables that are most important consideration points and weigh the options against these variables. Okay, you want to do that? You ready for that? So first we're going to decide what criteria to use, and then we're going to score the criteria across each criteria, and then we're going to apply weights to the scores to arrive at the final weighted score for each alternative. And then we're going to have eventually a number that's going to be the biggest number, and that's going to allow us to determine which project is the best one. Does that make sense? Any questions?
It does. I just want to make sure that my voice is really heard in this. It's really important.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. Yeah, cool. We'll make sure that it is heard. So the purpose of as we talk about the weighted score process, is to consider the key variables that influence our business decisions. So if, for example, if you're going to buy a new car, right? We think about a criteria around buying a new car. One criteria might be to choose a dealership, right? Another criteria might be maybe to choose a model of car that we want. You know, what would be another criteria if we're shopping for a car that you would consider?
Price.
Price. Criteria would be a price. Okay. So those are the criteria. So as we engage in the context of the criteria that's going to be best for our fundraising initiative, for our grants initiative, what I want to do is determine which are going to be appropriate for us. So as we consider the criteria, the first aspect of criteria is what? What's the most the key variable around the one criteria that we need to consider is we're considering the right grant process. Cost effectiveness, right? So we want to make sure that it's cost effective, right? Cost effective. I'm just going to put cost effective there. So okay, so cost effective. So it's got to be cost effective, right? So that's a criteria. So another criteria is the people that are required, right? The HR required, right? So we got to make sure that we're not applying too many people and too much overhead. So HR required. HR required is a variable criteria. Okay. So a third criterion is the time required. Got to make sure that we're optimizing our time and that it's going to take the least amount of time possible. So the time required. Time required. And then the fourth criteria, Tony?
I would say probability of success.
Probability of success. Great. We'll use these criteria, probability of success, to determine if this is the right project for us. So these criteria are a good construct to be able to use to make sure that we're engaging effectively and that we're actually applying the right thought process to be able to make it work. Make sense? So for each criteria, we need to weigh the viability of that criteria. So as we consider cost effectiveness, here, let's do this here. We got cost effectiveness, HR required, time required, and probability of success. Which one of these is the most important? Well, matter of fact, we'll rank it high, medium, and low. Which one variable is the highest variable that we have to consider as a board to make sure that we're evaluating the criteria effectively? Is it cost effectiveness, HR required, time required, or probability of success? So the highest rank goes to which one?
I would say cost effectiveness, only because you want to make sure that, in relation to the raise, that it's, minimized as much as you can to come up with the best net effect.
Okay, so there's the weight. So that's going to be the highest one. So then, what's the lowest one out of these the remaining three? Is it HR required, time required, or probability of success?
For me, it's time.
So the time is the lowest one.
For me, yeah.
Does that make sense? Does everybody agree that time? Because we got to make sure that we're optimizing time, but it's not the most important factor as we consider the criteria as we develop the weights. Does that make sense? So time. Everybody agree that time will be the lowest one? Okay, and then HR required, that's probably about half as important as the cost effectiveness, so that's going to be the medium one, and then probability of success is also going to be medium. So now we've got weights attached to the criteria. Okay, so and you're going to see how this all plays out. So it's important for us to be able to remember from a business perspective what components have the most weight as we consider all factors of our in our business. So okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to determine, based on a 1 to 10 scale, which one of these alternatives actually has the most favorable potential to be able to work in the context of the criteria. Okay, any questions?
I'm a little unclear about the criteria. We're saying high, medium, low, but I mean, is there some kind of numerical factoring or value we're going to do, or is that going to come later?
Yeah, that might come later. I appreciate you bringing it up. For right now, it's going to be high, medium, low. So the highest criteria is the cost index, the lowest criteria is the time required, and then the middle two criteria are HR and probability of success. That makes sense. We might attach a number to it a little bit just to give a weighted scale. So we'll see how it plays out. So good question though. So okay, so let's get into this. So as we look at the highest criteria in the cost effectiveness, which one of the alternatives that we came up with actually is the most favorable option when it comes to cost effectiveness on a 1 to 10 scale? So give me a 10 for the one that you believe is the most cost effective, the most favorable when it comes to being cost effective.
There are some great ideas up there on the board, but I would think any one of the funding sites might be a way to be more effective, because I believe they charge a contingency.
Okay, great. So we'll attach a 10 to that one. So then as we go through the remaining, the grantwatch.com, the grant consultant, the hiring the grant writer, and the crowdfunding, which is the next one that has the next level of priority on a 1 to 10 scale? So we've got 10. What's the 8? What's the next one down? It's probably going to be crowdfunding, right? Crowdfunding. And then as we look at the next one down, we've got the grant watch. We'll call that one a 5. Okay. And then when it comes to the hiring the consultant, we rank that one as a 2. Actually, the next one down is going to be 3 for the grant consultant, and then the 2. So now we've actually created a hierarchy based on the cost effectiveness, the criteria, as each one applies. So again, we just, for the sake of time, we just facilitated that conversation, and everybody had consensus on these numbers. Okay. So then as we go over to HR required, so when we look at the different components, so the grants consultant is the most favorable option when it comes to human resources required. Why is that?
Because you don't need someone internally to be monitoring the grant consultant.
Okay, great. So we don't necessarily need to hire people to be able to do that. Makes sense? So then the next one down, as we look through all these options, is hiring the grant writer from an HR required. Same type of thing as the grants consultant, right? Tony? Anybody else want to comment on that? So we'll call that one the 8. Okay? So then we have the grantwatch.com, that's weighted at a 4 on the 1 to 10 scale. And then the crowdfunding, because they're, from an HR perspective, those are basically about the same weight, 4 out of 10. And then when it comes to networking with existing donors, from a most favorable perspective, that's probably number 2 when it comes to HR required, because it's going to require a lot of people to be able to network. Does that make sense? Any perspectives? Is this actually making sense to you? So,
Yeah.
So as we go through this, I'm just going to, from a time required perspective, we can rate the different angles on it here. So from a time required perspective, the grant writer, hiring the grant writer, that's the 10 because of it's most favorable when it comes to time requirement. Then we get the 8 when it comes to hiring the grants consultant, and then the 5 applies to the grantwatch.com platform, and then 4 here, as we discussed, around networking, and then 2 down here. So, and then finally, probability of success. For the sake of time, we're going to put in the numbers here. So this is what we agreed on here: 6, 4, and 2. So we have consensus on the different components of weights relative to the criteria as they apply to each alternative. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to attach a number, and I think Scott saw this coming, to the actual criteria and how important that criteria is. So for the purposes of our analysis, the highest criteria we're going to attach on a 1 to 4 scale. Number 4 is the highest viability when it comes to the high criteria. So we'll attach a 4 to it. The medium number is about half as important as the high component, so we're going to attach a 2 to that. So these 2 mediums, and then the lowest is 1. Okay, so now we actually have some numbers to be able to reflect on, to be able to get a weighted score for each one of the criteria that you put up here. Is this making sense? Is it coming together now?
Yeah, Chris, this is probably the most comprehensive thing I've ever seen. It's helped make it very clear and kind of pare down to where the importance will lie once the scores are tabulated.
Good.
Fantastic.
Thanks. That's the intention here. So as we go through these, by the way, now I'm going to tally all these, and for the sake of time, this is the tally that we came up with as we applied the weights times the actual level of what's going to be the most favorable, and we came out with the numbers when it comes to, like for instance, the grant watch was a 5, multiplied by the 4, that gives it a 20 as a weighted score. So we tallied them all up, and we came out at the end with the actual weighted score, and it looks like that the most favorable option in this case, based on the weighted score that we talked about, was networking with existing donors at a 68.
Way to go, Mike.
So
Yeah, again,
so-
I'm really bothered by that. I really think that grantwatch.com should be our focus.
Okay. And now, Brad, just to clarify, our
Yeah.
definition of consensus that we all agreed upon is that I can live with it and I can support it, right? So that's what we want to agree upon. So as the executive director, we got to make sure that you're on board with this and you can live with it and support it. So as we look at the numbers, with the highest number being the one that we, in essence, have agreed upon from a weighted scale perspective, do we have consensus now, knowing that I can live with it and support it, that the networking with existing donors is actually the option that we want to go with. Please raise your hand if you have consensus right now. So. Okay.
I pass.
Oh, you pass.
So you're a pass.
So Mike, just to clarify, so can you support this? Networking with existing donors.
On just rethinking the whole situation, I just am not, I just don't like what I see up there, so I'm just gonna withhold my vote and just pass.
Okay. So what we want to do is we want to get consensus. So it looks like we have majority at this point. I just want to make sure that you're okay if we advance with the networking with existing donors as our fundraising project. You okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, I understand what consensus is, yeah.
Great, good.
Made
Appreciate
clear,
that.
So, but I passed.
Okay, understood. So again, we can live with it and support it. So we've actually now chosen a project. So congratulations, give yourself a round of applause. Well done, folks. Round it up. Give me some time. So now that we've agreed on the best project to advance with, I want to give the project initiative a title. Okay? So go ahead, individual exercise, 30 seconds. Write down the title that you would like to give to our new project initiative here at RPI. 30 seconds is all I'm going to give you. And when you're done, just look up. Okay, we all good? You got it written down? Okay, great. So let's go around the room. Brad, what'd you come up with?
All in on grants. AION.
So AION.
Yeah.
AION, which is all in on grants. Right. There's some energy associated with that. Is there an explanation point at the end of it, Brad, or not? No?
This will eradicate poverty.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
AION. Well done.
Got that feeling. Yeah.
Rick, what'd you come up with?
Let's see, RPI Grant Funding Initiative or something like that.
So RPI grant funding initiative. Initiative. Great. Okay, good. Good stuff. And then Mike, what'd you come up with?
I don't have anything.
Oh, you're gonna pass? Okay, that's fine. You can pass.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Tony, what'd you come up with?
I came up with the RPI Money Magnet Project.
RPI money magnet. Oops, magnet project. Great. Good stuff. Project. Can everybody read that? Does that make sense? You good with that? Okay. Scott, what'd you come up with?
How about RPI rocks?
RPI rocks. Love it. RPI rocks. By the way, does that one have an exclamation point at the end of it?
Absolutely.
I think it does. Okay, good. Okay, good. So now we've got it written up here. What I want to do is just run a quick consensus check, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to do a little bit of a vote. Okay. So notice there's some dots here on the screen. Go ahead and pull off a dot off of this off a sheet of paper. Just one dot. Doesn't matter what color. Just pull off a dot, and I want you to come up here and put a dot based on the one that you agree with, that you think is the right one to go with. Okay, go ahead and just do that. No time necessary. Rick, I love that. Dot on the forehead. Well done. Go ahead, Rick, if you go ahead and come up the front and put the dot. And Brad, just one dot. That's all we need, Brad. Thank you very much. Just one.
Okay.
Well done. Yeah. Okay. So notice, so there's four, right? So we'll remember that Brad put four in there. Scott, go ahead and put it up
Throw my
there.
dot up there for
Oh, you want it?
Okay,
I
great.
don't want to go up there.
Okay, hey, Rick, that's cool. We put it up there for Rick. That's fine.
Wherever you
Okay,
want.
great. We have a couple there.
Whatever you want, brother.
And then Mike, did you want to vote? No. Okay, great. So as we look at this, as you did this right, as we engaged effectively, and the number of dots was a kind of a tally effort. Looks like the AION, all in on grant, is the one that we all voted on that we agreed. And again, remember, consensus is I can live with it and support it. Does that make sense? AION, are we on board with that? Yes? Raise your hand, please, if you agree.
Sure, why not?
Again, a definition of consensus, I can live with it and support it. Rick, are you on board with that? Yes, nice. Mike? Yeah?
No,
So-
I'm gonna pass.
You're going to pass.
Yeah.
It's the best ever. That is the best name ever.
Well, granted, we do have majority consensus, so that's what we're gonna do. Is we're
Yeah, but
gonna
I
call
came
that
up with that name. That's why it's so good.
Well done, well done.
Yeah, it's
You
all
really
about
are.
me.
You really
Excellent,
are good at
Brad.
what you do.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
awesome.
Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back, right?
Okay, good. All right, so folks, what we've done is we've just gained consensus on the best project that RPI should follow in order to receive grant money. And now we're going to close the session and reviewing all of our accomplishments and checking them against our objectives, ensuring that we've cleared all the steps. Make sense? So it's important to ensure that we follow through to get results in the process. Does that make sense? So as we look up here, we actually have the agenda, which is the purpose, as we talked about, develop a project initiative and an action plan to be used to present to the board of directors for the purpose of requesting grant monies for RPI. We're going to talk about actions here in a moment as we close it out. From an agenda perspective, we did the introduction, ground rules, parking boards, what are some of the project ideas, lists of gathering information, gaining consensus on the preferred project. We did that, right? We gained consensus, right, on the project? We gained consensus on the project title. And then, of course, we're going to talk about next steps in a moment, and then we're going to review and close. So we're in the midst of that. So, covering off.
I want to make sure.
Love it. That's it. I love this guy. You know, he's our executive director, right? So this is what we came up with as we summarize this. So our chart indicates, as we come to consensus, that we're going to be networking with existing donors as we do RPI fundraising for RPI. So good job on that, coming to consensus with that. So looks like there are, as we clear out the parking boards, we really didn't have any issues. You know, everybody's good, no issues in this context. No, we didn't make any decisions right now, and then there really were no actions that we put out there. So we're good with that. We cleared out the boards. So everybody stuck to the ground rules relatively well. A little bit of activity there. So what we're doing here is we discussed the benefit of networking with existing donors to be able to make a difference here at RPI. So this is the project that we're going to engage in. It's really important that we all engage collaboratively and as a team to be able to make sure that we're looking at all the strategies and realizing that maybe some of these strategies we could use down the track, but the one that we got consensus on is this one, the networking with existing grant donors. So next steps, we would actually at this point talk about actions, who would take the next steps, but for the purposes of time, we'll just assume next steps where different people would do different things, but for the purposes of the role play, we're not going to get into that. But we would talk about next steps. And at this point now, thanks for your involvement. This meeting is going to play a big role in achieving our objectives here at RPI. Make sure that as we document the session, Mike, I think that's going to be your role. So you're going to be documenting the session afterwards.
Right.
And then distribution of results. How do you propose we distribute results? What should be the next step? Mike's going to document them.
Send my email.
No way. I think like smoke signal.
Smoke
or
signal?
Something.
Good idea.
Yeah, smoke signal.
Just text it to me.
So you want to text, you want to email? So the next step, and we'll just assume consensus on this, is going to be the most probably time effective and cost effective. That's going to be the email structure. So we're going to make sure the information is disseminated via email. I love the smoke screen.
Yeah, smoke signal.
Smoke signal, that makes sense. And then finally, when's our next session? When and where is our next session? I think we're actually going to meet at the same time next week, after all this is documented, to be able to actually take it to the next level, take the title that we came up with as we network with existing donors, and all in on the grant, the AION project. Okay? Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much for being here. Good job. So, now that we have completed the simulated facilitated session, the next step is to gain feedback from you on what went well and how I could have made it better. So the video recorder will continue to run the camera during the segment. So let me start by sharing my thoughts on what I did well. So I kept it going. You can see there was a structure I followed. I had a methodology for the weighted score. I knew what I was going to do. And I think it was a good technique to gain consensus. Actually, I wrote things down on the chart pretty well. I actually was able to list effectively. The opening was solid. I like the opening. We talked about informing everybody and making sure you were excited and while you were here. I set good ground rules, I think. That was good as well. So those are my thoughts on what I did well. So now, starting to my left, which is Brad, let's go around and give each person a chance to say what I did well. Feel free to pass at any time. If someone says something that you agree with, feel free to indicate your agreement by saying ditto. So what did I do well, Brad?
I think you held the context of the of the room. Yeah, you held the energy very well, even as we were all distracting you and throwing weird, wonky things your way. You clearly followed the format and stuck to the format. You seemed present to the objective, present to us, present to the flow, and you seemed certain in what you were doing. A sense of certainty.
Great, thank you. So Rick, what do you think I did well?
So you did a good job of catching me on the phone and stopping it. Yeah, I think you did a great job of kind of keeping the flow going, and you know, getting it done. Yeah, you did a great job of getting it done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, what did I do well?
I like the fact that you really stuck to the agenda, that you really followed the structure, you had a plan, and you really went through it. You didn't deter from it at any point. I thought that was really good, and so it kept us going on point.
Okay, great, thank you.
Tony? Yeah, I've got a couple of dittos in there, but I'll just expand on that too. I mean, there were some characters on script that were pretty difficult, and I think you managed it pretty well. I don't think I have the patience that you have. I would have just started, you know, but that's just me, but I think you did a great job there. And then as Mike mentioned too, just more about the structure, maintaining the integrity of the structure of the process, so that we didn't get distracted based on the characters. I thought the guys played a good role in that. I'm out of character now, but I'm just saying that I think they did a good job.
Great. Yeah, by the way, we're out of character now, so don't worry about that. We're done with
Okay,
the
yeah, so I wasn't out of character in my comment.
You weren't.
That's a typical BFF meeting we just saw there, so it's kind of interesting. But.
Anything you want to caveat, Mike?
No, I wasn't out of character, that's all I can say.
Scott, what did I do well?
Not much to add on top of that. I think you did a great job of keeping the conversation focused, dealing with the disruptions. I like the technique of pausing the meeting to get that handled and using a little bit of the peer pressure.
Yeah. I
For
couldn't have
that.
had a real call come at a better time. Like it was
You actually got a real call?
Yeah, it was a
Wow.
real call.
But you didn't turn your phone off, right?
That's right.
Well, it was out of the script. It happens, I get it.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant.
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, but just, and you know, accomplishing the objective, moving through a effective process to do that. So you kept everyone on track. You know, we didn't go on any tangents and
Okay, great.
off in the weeds.
Great, thank you. So, next, let me share my thoughts on what I could have done to have made the session better. Okay, so one of the things about me is I really enjoy facilitation. I enjoy being present. I had a construct and I got wrapped around the axle of it. You know, it was like I gotta follow the process, and I feel like I kind of fell out of presence because of that as I was going through. And it was like, oh, I gotta follow the script and everything, and you know, so there's a little bit of a kind of tension for me around that. So I probably could have done that better. My penmanship was bad. I know that. I normally am better with penmanship, and after I wrote my stuff down, I was like, wow, I could have done better with that. As I say, for me, it was the kind of the tension and the stress that I was feeling to be able to follow a process and keep it within the time constraint and get to the objective, and dealing with the chaos and honoring you as the leaders that you are, and trying to create a level of levity. And I don't think that I balanced that as well as I could have, you know, for what it's worth. So, well said. So now let's hear about other things that I could have done to make the session better. Who would like to start?
I'll go ahead. My first thought was I felt that the chart, you could have gotten a bigger one. Yeah, I mean, I know there was some space constraints in this room here, but just gotten a bigger one so that way I think you would have written better, would have been more legible if along those lines.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
And then the other thing I just, there was being more aware of when people were distracted. I mean, Rick right here on purpose, you know, did some things that you were just too focused on what you're doing over there. And, you know, if I would have been sitting next to him in a real meeting, it would have upset me. You know, I might have even said something to him, you know. just along those lines.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that. I was surprised he didn't address that. Yeah,
So what did I miss?
he was just being a knucklehead. He was kind of
Yeah.
in his own world.
Well, and the whole dot on the forehead, I actually created levity around that,
No,
you
no,
know,
no,
but
Did you?
just-
I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just
That was his
disinterested
role.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the empathy was pretty clear.
And I couldn't wait for it to end.
Yeah.
and you made that clear early on.
Yeah, I'm like, can we speed
Super
this up? Yeah.
Okay,
So
so-
clear.
You did a good job of telling me, okay, yeah, we're gonna start on time, end on
Right.
time. But yeah, I don't know as a facilitator if you're supposed to spank somebody down when they're, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I probably would have.
I was trying to pay attention too, but I was like, oh, I guess.
The second part of that was just that your presence did slip a little bit because you were focused on the construct. The context slipped a little. You were focused on the moving it forward instead of the spaciousness to create effectiveness, because you were so focused on efficiency instead of effectiveness.
Good point.
I felt like you were working harder than us. You know, like,
Interesting, good. I appreciate
Yeah.
the feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point.
it should have been us working hard to, and you know what I mean.
Good. That was.
But I mean,
Jim.
playing these roles was
Yeah,
kind of difficult
but there
too.
was, yeah, but at the same token, just to defend you, there was, the roles that we were given, you had to work harder than us, because
For
there's
sure.
really idiots in this room.
I don't even know what the roles were. I'm looking forward to seeing what they were.
Not do 3 hours now. So.
Anything else I could have done?
I was gonna add, maybe just expanding on what's already been discussed, is that, I like the fact you bring passion to what you do. I know you're really into this type of facilitating. And you were on point in trying to really push this meeting through. I think maybe sometimes the cadence, because of the passion, could have been slowed down just a little bit sometimes. Because, I can follow you because I know you, I can follow the pace, but, for others that are not used to that, it might take them a little time to get up to speed, on that one, so maybe just adjust the cadence just a little bit sometimes. Good point.
Ditto.
Thank you,
Mhm.
good stuff.
Yeah, I got a lot of dittos here. I the same thing with the presence. I think you were wrapped up in a bit in accomplishing the objective, but I figure that's mostly in terms of the time constraints. And for me, logistics wise, where I was sitting, you were pretty much in the way of the charts the whole time, so I wasn't really able to see what was going on or read it that much. But this conference room space. But anyway, that's something that would have been, if this was a real meeting, that would have been kind of limiting my access to participating if I didn't speak up and ask for that.
Okay, good point, good
Which I would have, but I didn't want to disrupt the flow of things.
I get it. Well, thank you. Thank you for not disrupting the flow, and thank you for your contribution in the outbrief too. So it's good. It's good to be aware of that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not aware of what I'm not aware of, and thanks for helping me be aware of it. So.
Okay, so thank you for participating in this session. The video recorder may now turn off the recording. Please review the verification of session integrity and make any comments you feel appropriate and sign the form.